Hi, I'm Will and welcome to Hotaru's Lens. Osamu Kanemura is a Japanese photographer who's known and active on the Tokyo art scene, but a little less famous and a little younger than the photographers I've talked about so far. The title of his well-regarded 2001 book, Spider Strategy, perfectly describes his unique view and interpretation of the city he calls home. Kanemura was born in Tokyo in 1964 and shoots a unique type of urban street photo which emphasizes the urban disorganization and complex relationships found therein. He shoots in black and white almost exclusively with his camera of choice, a Blaubel Machina 6.7. The Blaubel Machina 6.7 that Kanemura uses is a unique rangefinder-style medium-format film camera that was designed in Germany and built by Konica in Japan with a lens that extends on bellows, which was made by Nikon, strangely enough. They went on sale in 1979 for 158,000 yen, or about $729 at that time. They're rather sought after today, going for around $2,000 used, which is in the ballpark of what they would cost if the original price was adjusted for inflation. Kanemura began photographing in the early 90s as Japan left its economic bubble and entered a period of economic stagnation known as the Lost Decades. The effects of this caught Kanemura's eye as he noticed empty lots next to towering skyscrapers. This urban disorganization has led Kanemura to say that the idea of Tokyo being beautiful is a lie. Kanemura has cited influence from Western photographers Louis Baltz and Lee Friedlander, both of which did work which contained themes of man-made landscapes and their interactions with people. This influence, along with the sights of the post-economic bubble years, led Kanemura to have a style and a subject matter that is different from many other Japanese photographers. Notably, unlike is common among his peers, people play little to no role in Kanemura's work. His images of Tokyo are largely devoid of people, and when they are present, they aren't the focus. When asked about this, he has answered that of course in life people are the most precious thing, but in photographs things which are signs and symbols of people are of equal value to people themselves. These objects, such as store signage, vehicles, overhead wires, and the like, fill his images with indications of the complex social relationships that exist in the city. Osamu Kanemura's creativity and uniqueness expressed itself early in life. His path to photography, however, was not a traditional one. He attended Tokyo Metropolitan Tachikawa High School, but was expelled after a teacher found him huffing paint thinner in the bathroom. Now, getting expelled from high school is always a serious matter, but in Japan it poses particular challenges for being able to complete your education. In Japan, high school is not compulsory, unlike my home country, the United States. But despite this, Japan boasts about a 95 to 96% graduation rate as compared to the US's 90 to 91%. Now, because high school is not compulsory in Japan, schools can be selective about who they'll admit. And because of this, there's a system of entrance exams where students take an exam in winter for entrance into a high school during the start of the new school year in April. So what this means is that there's very little, if any, opportunity to simply transfer to another school mid-year. Even if someone who is kicked out of school or who has their education interrupted seriously in some way wants to enter another high school, there's a lot of headwind with having to take the entrance exam perhaps, and then being a year older than the other students and perhaps being subject to bullying or being ostracized a bit for not entering the school with them during typical freshman year entrance ceremony. I spent 5 years working in a Japanese public school district, and I'll do another video in the near future and talk about Japanese schools in more detail. He went on to do a variety of things in his 20s. He had thought he wanted to be a musician and played in a punk rock band. Then at the age of 25, a friend convinced him to study film at the Image Forum Video Research Institute. There, he made a number of short experimental films before moving on to study photography at the Tokyo College of Photography. It was here that Kanemura began shooting his now distinct and praised shots of Tokyo. When he first showed his work to his photography school teachers, they commented how messy and disorganized the photos were. Kanemura took this as a compliment. However, I'm uncertain from Kanemura's accounts if all of his teachers actually meant it as compliments when they kept repeating over and over that his photos were kitanai, kitanai. You see, Japan is a collectivist and face-saving culture, and this creates a peaceful, functional society. But one of the pitfalls of it is if you bring attention to something negative in your country or in your community, people will feel individually and personally diminished by it. And they will pressure you to stop as well as criticize you, rather than giving any attention to the negative thing that you're drawing attention to. In this case, Kanemura brought attention to the effects of the economic bubble bursting, as well as the unpretty side of Tokyo, which is a premier Japanese city that the country is very proud of. So I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't have his detractors because of that. Fortunately, Kanemura's big break came in 1992 when he had some photos published in Asahi Camera magazine, and they were seen by a Dutch curator. Abroad, his photos were seen as creative and insightful and very different and powerful. And he was invited to an international photo exhibition in Rotterdam, along with some extremely notable names like Nobuyoshi Araki, who I covered in a previous video. His work gained full and immediate legitimacy because of that, and his talent became recognized. He graduated from the Tokyo College of Photography in 1993, and in the subsequent years had several shows and published his first book, Mole Unit No. 4 Crash Landing, in 1995. He went on to release a number of books since, with his 2001 book, Spider's Strategy, being among his most recognized and popular. In the years 2000 and 2001, the then 37-year-old Kanemura appeared on 2 Japanese variety shows, Top Runner.
早速ご紹介しましょう。写真家の金村修さんです。どうぞ。
今夜のトップランナーは今最も注目される若手写真家金村修が登場。
and Jonetsu Tairiku.
ずっと東京の風景だけを撮り続け、昨年土門憲章を受賞した写真家がいる。金村修、37歳。
In those shows, he talked about and showed how he'll go out and he'll continually snap photos of whatever catches his eye, using 10 to 12 rolls of film per outing. On his Blaubel Machina 6.7, one roll of medium format film gives about 10 exposures. He said that at the time he was shooting about 2,000 rolls of film a year. Despite shooting a lot of photos and printing a lot of photos, he is very selective about which ones make the final cut, often tearing up and throwing away ones that didn't come out as good as he thought they would. To support his shooting and pay the monthly bills, Kanemura held the same part-time job that he held for over 10 years, delivering magazines and newspapers around train stations. He did this because it afforded him the opportunity to go out and shoot the city in between the morning and afternoon deliveries. Let's get back to Kanemura's photos a little bit and dive into his style, because he has several unique traits that stand out throughout his work. One is, despite Tokyo being a towering city, Kanemura's photos are shot almost exclusively in the landscape or horizontal orientation. I think clues to this can be found in some things he said in an interview. I don't want to provide a main character and create a central focus in the image. And everything shown in pictures is significant. I don't want to express hierarchy between the different components. He avoids turning his camera into the vertical orientation because he doesn't want to accommodate any items, elements, or parts of the scene. What he seems to be doing is creating a stage on which all elements are portrayed as equal. This is a similar concept to American photographer William Eggleston's democratic photography, where he talks about all items having equal value in his photos. Kanemura is also fond of reflections. It's not uncommon for him to allow a window which is reflecting the opposite side of the scene to take up part of the frame. His interest in reflections is made clear in his book Spider Strategy, which has several blank, highly reflective pages spaced throughout. He has said that he sees himself as a reflector, with a scene not having any mental or spiritual meaning until it interacts with him. It's interesting to note that one of his influences, photographer Lee Friedlander, is also noted for making effective use of reflections. One more trait that really stood out to me that Kanemura admits to doing is that he tends to focus on the distance and allow objects in the foreground to fall out of focus. This is contrary to what a lot of photographers tend to do, which is focus on the foreground and allow the background to fall out of focus. I read in a discussion many years ago that humans, as well as other animals, have a natural tendency to want to be aware of their immediate surroundings. And photos which have something in the foreground that is out of focus violates this instinct and can create a tinge of discomfort. I have to wonder if Kanemura doesn't do this on purpose, maybe to convey his feelings about the city, which are known to be somewhat negative, despite it being his main subject and the place that he has spent his life in. He has his own preferred style and technique, and can talk about it at length.
なんでかってここが一番ポイントになってるから。だから普通の写真は手前にピント持ってきて後ろをぼかすんだけど、僕は後ろの方にピント持ってきて前をぼかすっていうか。ここら辺はもう本当画面がこういう風に画面作りっていうのかな、このフレームの中にまだこういうものが入ってもう一つフレームができている。
But he's also interested in theory and ideas. He's written a book called Beta Exercise, The Theory and Practice of Osamu Kanemura, which contains a series of essays on different topics as well as some interviews that have been done with him. One of the essays is called Life is a Gift, and it contains his ideas on capitalism and commercialism. Another one of the essays talks about film and filmmaking, something he's still interested in, and he still does, producing these short art films, usually centered on the ideas of capitalism, which are played in the Tokyo galleries where he has exhibits. And one of the other interesting essays is about his thoughts on photography in the digital era. And he talks about how individual concept and idea has to substitute for technique because technique has been replaced by technology. The quotes I mentioned earlier, which gave me insight into why he shoots only horizontally, actually came from this book. As I mentioned, it's bilingual. The one book contains English and Japanese, and it can actually be found on Amazon.com for around $22. I'll provide an affiliate link to it in the description below. Please check it out if you're interested. Kanemura hasn't strayed too far from his main interest and style over the years. His books and exhibitions are often given English names and titles, which isn't that unusual in Japan, since English names impart a kind of trendy, modern, international, open-minded feel to things. His titles, however, are unique to say the least, with things like Suck Social Stomach, Marshmallow Brainwash, Uncle Zionos Meat, Suzie Cream Oil Cheese, and Happiness is a Red Before Exploding. Some of these are plays on other things in pop culture. For example, he has said that Suzie cream oil cheese is derived from Frank Zappa's Suzie cream cheese, but that he added oil to express the dramatic clinginess of Japanese cities. I have to wonder, however, if some of these titles aren't the product of him missing out on his high school English classes. I hope you've enjoyed hearing about a Japanese photographer that you might not have been familiar with. His photos are certainly fascinating and have me looking at my own city in a new light. I'll be back in the future with more videos about Japanese artists, photography, and culture. Until then, o genki de, mata kondo.